Possiamo andare? Buonasera.
Good morning. I'm Andrea Meneghelli, Cineteca of Bologna. Daniele Furlati is with me, who edited the music for the screening Italia K2 that we'll see tonight in Piazza Maggiore, and we are very happy to have restored. As you know, this evening we will not show the complete film. So, the integral part will be shown at the Trento Film Festival. So we made a re-elaboration focusing on the images of the K2 mountain, specifically shot by Mario Fantin, with a score that was prepared by Daniele, starting from the original score by Usuelli, and with an accompaniment of written documents helping us to get in details within the movie and to understand the stages of this endeavor. But this will be the focus of a later conversation at about 12, if I'm not mistaken. You will see it in the program. Today we will focus on the restoration, and I wanted to start by starting from January 1954, a few months before the departure on the K2 expedition, when on the Plateau Rosà an outing is organized so that the members of the climbers can get used to the teamwork and the high altitude. Mario Fantin is there, and for him this is a sort of a rehearsal, general rehearsal of what he will do on the K2, although he doesn't know yet whether he will go or not to film this event, because as it seems only in the last, very late, he was officially named as the filmmaker of the climb, because they thought he would be an obstacle, because the aim was to get to the top of K2, and filming the approaches to the summit was not relevant for the organizers. So Fantin left. Fortunately, he was called in to film the climb. So the shots that were carried out when the team were getting ready on Plateau Rosà, and Fantin edited them on a film called Prelude to K2, and I invite you to watch it this afternoon here with the different documentaries he made. So after this preparation endeavor, 28 January 1954, Ardito Desio, the head of the expedition, a geologist, wrote a letter to Amedeo Costa, the vice president of CAI. He was part of the organizing committee of this expedition. So the letter has an object, cinematic or filmic material for K2, and some points are set. We don't know yet whether Fantin will leave, but they get ready for that, and some items are set. They say they won't use a 35mm stock. It is too heavy, it's difficult to be handled, uncomfortable, heavy. Every kilo or more or less counts because you carry it on your shoulder. So the decision, the film will be in 16mm, in reversal 16mm. So the stock there, through several processes, would become positive without having to print it or develop it. So the positive is the same original stock that we find inside the camera when you shoot. So there is a very good definition, lots of details are caught in the film, as many of you know. Usually you use 16mm negative from which you develop the positive print. Initially, there is a doubt whether to use the Ferrania color stock. What happens? It's a Ferrania color with very low temperature would become too brittle. And so they pick Kodachrome, which was tested in high altitude, and so it was the best solution. So when the material arrived, we say the reversal was really reversal 16mm color Kodachrome. So Desio talks about the cameras. There will be 3 16mm Payard cameras, a Bell and Howell, owned by Fantine himself, and 2 other lightweight cameras, we don't know the make, 1.5 kilos each. Set focus, the one that will be given to the climbers reaching the top, small and easy to be used. Fantine, as we said, will not climb on the top, on the summit. He will reach almost the top, will stop. He's not a climber. Desio said also that we shouldn't have not only one person knowing how to use a camera, Fantine. We need to just train everyone, and it's very relevant because up to the last moment, they didn't know which climber would come up to the summit. So everyone would need to learn something on how to run the camera and to make the shots. One of these 2 cameras came back with the stock inside, with the film. The second one, instead, with the film by Cima, was left, forgotten. There will be other prior to the Camp 8, 7,728 meters. Perhaps it's still there, and maybe some lucky climber will find it, and maybe there are still images being impressed there. Other precious information is provided by Fantine, the cameraman, in his diary called K2 Lived Dream. He said that in the climb to get closer to K2, he would shoot 200 meters of film every day, so 18 minutes a day. Then when going up in the altitude and the weather became very harsh and difficult, he shot less. So he ended all the stock. Fantine, at the beginning, thought that the stock was not enough. So you have to understand the organizers that did not want to bring in a high altitude lots of weight that was not necessary. So once they got on the summit, on the way down, the head of the expedition, geologist Desio, wanted to turn aside for scientific research and asked Fantine to come with him to do some shooting. And he was thunderstruck when Fantine said, "We don't have any more stock, no more reels." So Fantine writes that Desio got really raging mad and and blamed him for something that he was not too guilty of. Every 15 days, the film was sent back to Italy, 20 reels from Pakistan to Italy to be processed. And in order to keep them at the same temperature, so Fantine put them in the biscuit tins that were not that were empty. So you reuse and recycle these tins, metal tins, and together with the reels, he sent his notes at night under the tent when he described in details the frames, the shots. He also drew a sort of a storyboard and also indication for the editing. These notes were preserved, but as regards the indication for the editing, they were useless because at the end the film was taken away from Fantine and was given to Francesco Baldi, and Fantine didn't have any more control on the film he had made. At the end, Fantine is very precise. At the end, 3,804 meters was made, 5 hours and a half, and of these 5 hours and 50, 22 minutes were not shot by Fantine, but the teammates, the climbers that went up to the summit. So Fantine stopped at camp for 6,560 meters. So there were lots of debates on that with Desio. He wanted to climb further up. Desio said no all the time because he was afraid that the presence of an operator would be an obstacle to the work of the climbers. So Fantine was he complains in his diary. He says that he felt useless because he could not do what he wanted and to complete his mission. And he also says that perhaps Desio wants to stop the film being made.
Anyway, Fantine obeys and teaches the other climbers to use cameras, how you use the diaphragm, how you do a right adjustment, and how to make an overview that is a good one. And in particular, his scholars are the climbers, Bray, Labram, Lacedelli, and Compagnoni, who are going to be the two that actually are going to reach the peak of K2, and they're going to be filming these incredible images from the top. 4 minutes of images, and unfortunately not all have been passed to us because 2 minutes have remained there at Camp 8. As I said before, the images were filmed in Pakistan, and Karakoram were shot at an invertible 16 millimeters. And it was the material that we were looking for, because it was the material that would have ensured a better definition of the image, the better detailed image. And this invertible 16 millimeters that was mounted existed, and it helped us a lot. It was in the film library of CAI, the CAI. Actually, we don't have the whole film. We have 6 reels of film, but what we are missing is roll 1, and we're missing almost completely roll 2, which is understandable because the first 2 rolls of the film are not the ones that were shot in Pakistan and K2, but they are the ones that are afterwards shot in Italy by the team of Baldi. And so presumably, but we have to study it further on, and they were shot in 35 millimeters, but I will talk about this later on. So this invertible 16 millimeters comes in, and we start doing the processing.
Ed ecco qua un esempio appunto della pellicola. È abbastanza impressionante.
It's rather impressive to think that this object is actually what went up at a high altitude it was exactly the original device. Unfortunately, these 4 reels of reversal 16 millimeters presented problems of preservation that were particularly highlighted, especially in the last roll. Let's see.
Ad esempio qua possiamo vedere l'ultimo rullo in che condizioni era.
The last reel under what condition it is. Luckily we have a very slight vinegar syndrome on some parts, but there is also the warping of the support that rendered the film, the stock, in a spiral shape.
Possiamo meglio vedere, per esempio.
See it better from this image. In other cases, we had some halos that are fastidious, of course, and above all, the most fastidious things are molds that had attacked the emulsion, so the image was not as legible. And you can see some other examples in this sense. Luckily, not on all reels, but on some parts, and especially, as I said, on the last reel, we have this phenomenon. In some cases, at the end of the film, we had this problem, and as you can understand from this, you can see from this photo, we see a loss of the original color, original dye. It's a fading of the image, which is terrible, which is particularly severe because we miss out on the blue of the sky, the red of the bottles and so forth, and the other colors that were not clear-cut, of course. So we needed to look for another element that could fill in not only the gaps of the first 2 reels that were missing, the reversal 16 millimeters, but also the damaged part of the original reversal roll that, and despite the digital restoration, could not be recovered in a satisfactory way. But what we wanted was to keep as much as possible the reversal roll because it would give us the best quality. So from the film library of CAI, we had an interpositive 35 millimeter of successive generation, so lower color, but the colors were well preserved. So we have decided to intervene with this interpositive only where the reversal parts were missing and only where the reversal was too damaged, and only not only but also only these parts, but on those parts that did not need, in quotes, very many quotes, of a detail of the image that was strong. I explain it better. If we had not images of mountains at a distance, but long fields of snow, so the detail was not necessary, then we would use the interpositive without too much sufferance, so to speak. Here we have. Here we see the percentages of the various elements per reel. IP is interpositive, pause, reversal is the reversal 16 millimeters, the most important source. The numbers match the frames. Pause is a positive print that we have used, 35 millimeters, that we have used only for the headlines of the film that are in color, but for the other elements we only got them in black and white. But as you may notice from this table, the first roll was completely taken from the interpositive. The second reel almost completely from the interpositive. The third reel instead was taken completely from the reversal. And as concerns the fourth reel, the majority of the images have been taken from the reversal, 16 millimeter. And as the fifth reel is concerned, over half of the images come from the reversal. And more problematic is the last reel, where the double of the image is taken from the interpositive. So at the very end, if we calculate, we have a 68% taken from the interpositive for the headlines, 42% taken from the interpositive, and 56% of the images taken from the reversal. Now, I'm going to show you a comparative example between reversal 16 millimeter and interpositive 35 millimeters in a scene that at the end we decided to take from the interpositive. So from the most defined element, because the reversal presented problems of decay, of dye, color, mold, and so forth that prevented us from picking it as a starting element or main element. Bear in mind that in the clip we're going to be seeing, it lasts a couple of minutes. We already have for both elements work done of digital restoration and work processing of the color. So that was the best we could take from those two elements. So we can see the video, please. Thank you.
Allora, voi avete qua il reversal.
Here you have the reversal, and here you have the interpositive. You see on the reversal we can see some colors that are slightly faded, that have, let me say, temper tantrums.
Ecco, qui potete vedere anche, non so se si riesce a vedere, una dominante rosa sul reversal, piuttosto fastidiosa e non recuperabile. Ecco, su questo file, su questo schermo naturalmente non è possibile, ecco, vedete qua.
You see this pinkish color that emerged on the reversal that cannot be corrected. Maybe you cannot appreciate fully the higher degree of definition of the reversal on the interpositive, but you will manage probably to see it better in the screening 4K in the Piazza Maggiore. You see here that there is a decay in the reversal version, and it is impossible to correct it. At this point, I would have liked, at the beginning, I wanted to show you a different case, because between the two elements at the end, we decided to use the reversal 16 And I wanted to show you the arrival on the top, on K2, and the shooting that were carried out on the top that are really incredible because for those images it was indispensable for us to use the original reversal 16 millimeters for the great need to have more details, the highest definition, the utmost enchantment. But at the very end, I'm not going to show them to you because if tonight someone is going to see the screening, it is a moment that to me is magnificent. So I don't want to ruin it by showing it to you now. And tonight, this evening, we will go with our own feet, but with our eyes on top of this this peak. And since before I was a little bit confused, but I will be more precise by telling you that the meeting on K2 will take place at 12 o'clock, and it will be a conference by Marco Albino Ferrari, a writer who has written for our version of the film the texts that accompany the screening. And I give now the floor to Daniele Furlati, who's going to talk of the work done on music.
Buongiorno a tutti. Anche io avrei voluto farvi ascoltare.
I wanted to show you all some score, a musical. I don't want to musical scores or pieces. I don't want to make a spoiler, because I would like to talk about the work we carried out for the score. So this musical work for K2 started in April, when I was commissioned to do this work. Farinelli told me, well, there is this movie. Look at this movie. Try to think how you can present a new score. And he had this idea of presenting it silent. I would like to have it silent, totally silent. Would you like to create a new score? I watched the film, I studied, I saw the original version by Baldi, the one that we are going to see in Trento in just a few months, and I've heard the music by Teo Usuelli, extraordinary, and the two-element drama elements that were there, associated with the mountain. We find the sound of metallophone and vibraphone, this hanging disc that would merge with the sound of nails on the rock. So this was irreplaceable. Honestly, any score would be not as good as that one. Then the original idea of this march, this climb up, one step after another, which is really kind of Italian as a march, giving the idea of the fatigue, the exhausting march. We listen to it quite as a triumph. Soon and slowly, these high there is this the fatigue. The climbers have to, so the steps are just very difficult. So you can see that it's a titanic endeavor. Everything became more complex when
nello specifico,
when the music work had to follow the new editing. The editing, which did not have all the dialogues, the voiceovers, so the drama would have to change in essence. In the Baldi's editing, the musical cut is a triumphant, very rhetoric of the historical period, in 1954, which cannot be supported today, because all the triumphant tone from a musical point of view, in my opinion, cannot be associated with the climbing of these people. They came up to 8,000 meters with very little oxygen, so they say. So we had to be try to be more spiritual. This was a triumph of the soul, of the stamina of these people that were able to conceive this endeavor. They were the first to get to the summit of the KT. All the other climbers had failed. So I looked at the new editing, new cuts, and I saw, but I don't want to get into details because I don't want to spoil your view afterwards. So I saw this shot of the climbers looking up, in the foreground, a close-up shot. So there are two popular folk songs from Val d'Aosta region on the Alps, which have not been played much in the Baldi's edition. So I wanted to draw out these folk songs, providing them with more drama vis-à-vis the first version, and the chorus, the choir of male voices, and also the choir of the opera house. Of course, few chorists, few singers we rehearsed in the theater. They're really moving. Of course, the number is there are less choir members there because of Piazza Maggiore on the stage. There's not much space for it. So one of these folk songs associated with these close-ups that are really moving. If I sing them, I start crying, looking at the faces of these climbers, and I hope you will see it this evening, because you can see the spiritual triumph. That was really the objective or the goal of this drama, and I hope that I've reached it in presenting this new musical version. An essential issue and problem I've asked Farinelli. I said, well, we should keep the score by Usuelli by changing the drama. Let us look at the stakeholders. You could not find anything, so keep into. I remind you that we had very little time in our best tradition, as a note. But even we didn't have much time, because at the time when we looked for, or we searched the score, we had 1 month of time. And we found the stakeholder, the title holder, Maestro Daniele Dall'Ongra, who granted us the use of the material which is available, which is not the score. I would like to show you. So there's the CI deposit, which is very precise, because you find all the chronological elements and documents of Maestro Usuelli, of the editing of Baldi's film. So about 33 musical pieces or small pieces that were deposited in the Association of Musicians, CI. So for the protection of copyrights, okay, that's the role. So that's the repertory number.
E poi vi faccio vedere quello che c'è.
And now I will show you what we have. A sort of a score on 2 lines. I don't know whether you're a musician or not. There was nothing that no holders had any section for the orchestra. So the enormous work to trying to reconstruct. So we waited for 1 week in order to make all the searches. The only material we had is this one. No, just a hint of melodies and some indication, very rare, for the harmonic pieces. There was nothing, so this was just a draft, as in when you put, so you put a writing the music. Sometimes there are also errors in terms of speed, not by Usuelli, who is a genius, one of the greatest musicians of the sound cinema. And after we waited, we didn't know what to do. We had to build the score from scratch by listening the movie from the 50s. So the mono sound, it really reduces the frequencies, and the soundtrack of the movie, as I said before, has a voiceover which is very strong. Yeah. For 90% of the movie over the music. So the music is underneath the voice. So it's quite difficult, it's quite complex. Also the timing, the complexity and timing. Just to make, to cut short, so in 18 days we built everything only from listening, with just few indications. Another constraint, I've heard something I would perceive like 3 trumpets, trombones. So there was a group of brasses that I could not fit into Piazza Maggiore. So then I need that. So I had only two trumpets, 2 trombones, etc. So I had already written many things, considering the members of the orchestra that was used by Israeli. I had to reduce their numbers, which was very amusing. I mean, you know, I like that very much, although it's really time-consuming. And at a given point, at a given time, I was happy. I don't know why, because we could not find the remaining of the score. I had 2 extraordinary helpers, Antonio Ministeri and Francesco Petronelli, who really supported me day and night with a great passion, really, that matched mine. I had a great time, and I think they did, or I hope they did. So I would like to add something more about the work we carried out in the new score. As I said before, the triumphal world was eliminated, the first 2. So this will be M1, the first musical piece in the movie by Baldi, where there is this piece made by triumphal trumpets. I eliminated, I left this, what you see afterwards, 1, 2, 3, 4 measure or bar, when there is FF fortissimo. That will be the leitmotif of K2, which really, you know, dissonating. It's almost like rock-like, with full orchestra. the cymbals, the trumpets, the brass. So it was used in the original orchestration, which is very important. So this is an Italian endeavor. So these cymbals is the sounds of brasses of the bands, the marching bands. So the quintessential of the Italian sound, but also provides also the sense of an imposing mountain, which is disquieting. These two bars or measures, which are more serene, but also with a little of triumph, we used only in some pieces at the end of the editing. So just to highlight the immensity of the mountains and not celebrating the triumph, the climbing on top of the summit by human beings, but the mountain, the visual view of the mountain, the spectacular mountain ranges. Another operation we did, and I liked very much, in the score we kept as I said, to re-edit the pieces, the musical pieces, to match them on the new editing. In the score, in order to have a reference in the new score, I kept, and I will show it to you, in the new title, I kept the musical pieces of reference of the original score. As you can see, here it is, that's the number one, but the remaining pieces are 2, 3, 4, chronologically down to the last piece. So in the new score, which orchestrated, I've written that there's the new title. So M is music in the musical language for movie and cinema. M means the musical piece. So the second piece, music for the new editing, is built, re-edited from the piece 4 and 2. I re-edited, as Indemid said, music since the cinema editing has underwent a great influence. So the cinema editing has had an impact on the music editing. He was right. Hindemith was a great lesson for all the cinema composers. So this is the work of orchestration. I would like to show you another experiment I wanted to do. This evening in Main Square you will see it. I try to construct parts of the orchestration as shaped as a mountain. I will try to really reduce the format of the PDF. I don't know whether you realize the music enters, follows a bit the range of a mountain. So this vertical. So this is an experiment which are inside the composition. So the music really having this, you approach the mountains from the lower, the celli and also the bass, which are part of the symphonic elements, and then you get to violins. So this music as a sort of mountain that you climb step by step. So these are plays that has to correspond to sounds, otherwise this would be worthless. But I hope this could entice you. Of course, this could be invisible when you listen to the music, but this was a game I wanted to do because we want to make a blend, a seamless blend of music with the image. All the score has to be a function of the cinema. Another element, and then I close, to the drama or the dramatic setup in music, is to really have audiences perceive the fatigue. So there is no voiceover, but we have the intertitles, the subtitle by Dino Ferrari. So how can we depict this fatigue of climbing by the man going up the summit, the harshness? So I had an idea. I talked with Farinelli, and we thought that this was the right choice. We made several experiments. This time we had lots of trials in 18 days, error and trials, a lot of experiments with a score that was made by following exactly the Usuelli's orchestration, and a new score in 18 days. We worked a lot. That's why I really was very happy while doing it. So we split the film in 3 blocks. The 3 blocks, so 60 minutes, 20 minutes each. First block, first part, dense, more dense in music, very symphonic, 100% symphony, with a few pieces, diegetic pieces, taken from the audio of the film. I would like Gilles from Immagine Ritrovata for the restoration of the sound. He recreated sounds of the film with great expertise. And in the first part, there are some songs, folk songs, interspersing the score. We try to blend them seamlessly. So the musical pieces, the symphonic pieces, blending in with the diegetic elements from the movie. So, and this part opens up with the leitmotif, very harsh, of the K2, and this march being repeated. And then in the second block, everything expands, so the sound environment takes a life of its own. So you feel the steps, the sound of the steps on the snow. You start hearing, breathing. And then also we introduce in the second block a new music theme, the dramatic theme. I don't want to, spoiler alert. No, so that will be the core element of the film. There's a new musical world interspersed with the environment. The third block, instead, will be more expanded, less musical pieces, and the music will slowly be quenched. And so we get to the summit in this beautiful dawn of these images that you're going to see. Thank you.
C'è una mano alzata, vedo là in fondo.
Un momento.
No, noi qua adesso però al momento non abbiamo purtroppo oltre a
unfortunately, we do not have time for questions. I'm sorry.
nuovamente ringraziare.
I wanted to thank CAI that made this endeavor possible. There's the Mountaineer Association, and also considering the time frame we worked on. As Daniele said, I cannot mention the name of everyone, but Elena Tamacar, Alberto Jamie, and the choir Diego Mercuriali and the Barberis for the music carried out in such a short time, in record time, but I'll say in record time, but well done, marvelously. I don't know whether your question? No, I would like to thank Maestro Timothy Brock, who will be the director of the orchestra of Comunale, because his experience really helped me a lot. Without him, many changes we made during rehearsal would not be possible. And also the musical value that I hope will emerge, the light of the Usuelli score will emerge also thanks to the work of Maestro Brock. If you want to see other film by Fantine, we will go in Peru, in Kilimanjaro with Fantine, and he shots this afternoon, and also in Ivory Coast. And you're welcome to the screening of Fantine. Thank you.